the maracas, I go chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom.
Welcome to No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, a show that takes a critical look at the disparities between medical school education and society's growing healthcare inequities. Join Dr. Pedro Cuba Pete Greer each episode as he interviews the experts working to transform medical education and ensuring that future doctors are trained to provide equitable and compassionate healthcare for all communities. Dr. Greer received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009, honoring his dedication to providing health care to underserved populations. As Dean of Roseman University College of Medicine in Las Vegas, Dr. Greer is committed to creating a medical school of the future where students embrace the need to unite the heart and science of healthcare. And now, the host of No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, Dr. Pedro Cuba Pete Greer.
Live from Studio A in Las Vegas. Unless you're watching this recorded, then it's not live, but it is right now. Hi, it's Cuba Pete. I'm Pedro Jose Greer. They call me Joe. I'm the dean at the Roseman University College of Medicine, which we hope to be opening in our doors in the next couple years to start a really different medical school. A medical school that improves the disparities in their communities and gets doctors from their communities. The podcast itself is the intersection of society and healthcare, and society and what do we need to do differently as medical educators to prepare the future workforce, to make sure that they can go out there and do what they need to do. And to say the least, my profession is fraught with problems, all the way through structural ones to other ones that appear as we go along. But on this podcast, we have some of the most amazing people you could ever meet. And this is a homegrown one, not homeborn, but homegrown, as he originally comes from Tallulah, Louisiana, of which, by the way, we've had a guest here before, which is also from that small town. We're finding out that there's a lot of folks from Tallulah, Louisiana, and Vegas.
That was one of the reasons why I wanted to go and check the place out, because there's a lot of people that migrated here from Tallulah, and it's like you would think it's this big place that got all of these people and so forth and so on, and it's like it's completely different from what you would think, because there are quite a few people in Las Vegas from Tallulah.
Actually, Tallulah, the name itself, is bigger than the town, isn't it?
It is, exactly.
So,
yes, it is.
Now, you came out here actually before the big migration of African Americans from the South. Out here, that was with the magnesium plant, correct?
Yeah.
And for those that are not familiar with it, Henderson was the home of the largest magnesium plant during the Second World War.
That's correct.
And actually, Dignity Hospital System used to be the magnesium's hospital, and the nuns bought it for $1. So
yeah,
that was interesting. But upon graduating from high school, actually, when you were in high school as a child here, and I was reading about this, that you had some stories about working in a bowling alley?
Oh, well, but all of those was things that, one of the things about the history of what's considered to be now, they call it historic West Side community, where I actually grew up, went to the school that is now on the historic register.
Oh, yeah, 5th Street.
Yeah. No.
I've been to the building. It's beautiful. They restored it quite nicely.
Yeah, they restored it. And then went to Madison. And back then, you went, if you lived in that kind of historic West Side area, there was only 3 high schools back in the day. There was no junior high, so you went from West Side, that was the elementary school, to Las Vegas High, to Madison, which was the elementary school, and you went from Madison from the 3rd grade to the 9th grade. And then you went to either Vegas or Rancho based on where you lived at in the area. So, but when you're growing up in that historic West Side area, a lot of people don't realize that that actually was where the town was at that point. Like for example, you probably would come up. I may be getting in front of you, but I I bought what was called the Golden West Shopping Center, which was actually the largest shopping center built in Southern Nevada in 1964. Then they built the Boulevard Mall. So that kind of show you how
But you're the original owner of the largest
shopping center, and yeah, as an African American.
And I heard you did very well when you sold it.
I did. I did very well.
Let me put it to you this way: it's better than the lottery.
Well, no, I don't know about better than the lottery, but see, there was a bunch of sacrifices down the road. Like, we'll probably get into, me being the first African American baccarat dealer. Well, I had to. There was a point to where I walked away from Caesars. And you don't walk away from a baccarat dealing job at Caesars.
I know that because my cousin was one.
So. Not then, back in the day. But I did because it came a point to where once I had purchased the Golden West Shopping Center, that it came down to where I needed to, a couple of years I purchased it and trying to deal baccarat and, to support myself because the shopping center couldn't do it. But it came a point to where I had to choose between continuing to be a baccarat dealer, which was a very good job.
I was going to say with a guaranteed lucrative position.
Yeah. Every, it's a baccarat dealer, you is in on the tokes. The salary wasn't hardly anything,
right? But
you're in on the tokes 7 days, 24 hours a day. So that means that on your days off, on your vacations, if you call in sick, you are still in on whatever tokes that was made that day. That's what made it such a great job.
And baccarat's a big money game, so those are generally very nice.
Yeah. You really had mostly, you had high-end players because they, I hate to really kind of go into, because, let's say you mentioned baccarat as a high-end game. Well, when I was hired, and I was hired for a reason, because the person that hired me had a different alternative for baccarat, and he came in with a $5 baccarat buy-in, because most places was $100 buy-in. Okay.
And this is in the 60s.
And this was in the 70s, the early 70s, like 71, 72. And the person that hired me had other alternatives.
And the person that hired you was a very well-known figure here, worldwide, actually.
Well, if
I got to say it.
Can you speak?
It was Frank Rosenthal.
Okay,
correct. Let's just say it.
Right. Yeah, it was Frank Rosenthal. And there's so many stories on things that, if you've seen the movie Casino, a lot of that, the stuff that kind of went on between him and, what was his name? That Joe Pesci played. Spilantro. The things that happened between him and Spilantro, things that happened on the table.
It's a side comment that I know the names of the mob, okay? But anyways.
A lot of that kind of went on and was in view of everybody, the baccarat crew and the people that was in the baccarat, But there was but it was a good time. It was a good time.
It's interesting. My family's originally, not originally, but prior to coming to the United States, from Cuba. Because when the Americans got involved at the end of the war, both sides of my family, one was from Charleston, the other one from Dalton, Georgia, they stayed in Cuba.
Yeah.
They met women from the Canary Islands or from Cuba itself. And the competitor to Las Vegas at the time was Havana in the 50s in gambling. But Cuba was so corrupt that when the mob came down and took over the most prestigious casino, Momutny, the story is they actually cleaned up the casino. Now, nobody can imagine the mob cleaning up, but they did a good job. They still skimmed off the top, but we didn't want to take that away from them.
No, and there was things that a story, for example. We when Frank put the baccarat in the Stardust, okay, he hired 7 baccarat dealers. I was actually the last guy hired, but none of us was over 25 years old. None of the baccarat dealers had any prior gaming experience. Now, when you look back on that, there was a reason why none of us had any gaming experience, and we were all young. Because let's say he gonna put in this baccarat for a purpose, and if let's say the people that's running the game, if we knew about the gaming control board, about the different things that could happen, then we know too much.
Right.
So there was one thing that he did up front was to make sure that the dealers only knew and did what he wanted you to do.
But there was a very important incident that happened in the late 1960s here, and that was the riots in the historic West Side, where a lot of people are not aware of this. So I think there was 3 entrances into the historic West Side, and the National Guard blocked them.
Yeah.
And also, your shopping center was affected by the riots, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Golden West Shopping Center. It was partially burnt down, and it did affect the riots. The riots did affect that side of town, actually, that hasn't, and this was in 65, 66, right after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, and the area really has never bounced back to what it was, to just a minute portion of what it used to be. You had mentioned earlier about me doing pins in the bowling alley. Well, the bowling alley was called the Cotton Bowl, but that was just one of the commodities that was in that West Side area. For example, the bowling alley, which was on Jackson Street, and on Jackson Street, there were 3 hotels, the Carver House, the Jackson Hotel, and the Emerald Hotel, all on Jackson Street, and the Cotton Bowl, Mom's Kitchen, and pool hall, and all of those things. So, there was a lot of excitement in the area back in the day, and that the riot, and then, once integration was kind of open for all, you can live anywhere and so forth and so on. It just kind of...
And you lost a lot of businesses and professionals that way.
Everything really kind of changed from that point on.
And interestingly, it's called the historic West Side, although it's not west, but it was west of the railroad tracks.
At that time, yeah.
So that's why it was called...
that's why it was called the West Side, because you figure on the other side between, of course, they say that in like most cities, the same kind of thing happened that separated minorities groups from the rest of the community.
I'm from Florida, so you have the US 1 that runs up the coast.
Okay.
The segregation that occurred in the South with that was African Americans were not allowed to live east of it because that was oceanfront.
Yeah. So that was the same thing here. Yeah. That you basically lived on the west side of the tracks. And
living there, and you're this incredibly successful business individual that could right now sit back and just tell stories.
Yeah.
But you're still very involved in economic development.
Correct.
You're still very involved in really helping those that didn't have the opportunities before to get out there. And why do you do that?
You know, I think it's because, well, I think it's because, you know, like to grow up in Las Vegas and back then was really a joyful time. I mean, you know, like the fact that, you know, a lot of people when they ask about, you know, whether or not how was the prejudice and did you, you know, how was, you know, how was you treated by, you know, like non-whites and so forth and so on. Well, we didn't have really that any kind of bad treatment or anything. I never seen any prejudice or anything. But of course it was all around, and then the results of how the town has grown really speaks for itself. But growing up in that little West Side area, that everything you needed was right there. You had the stores, you had the shopping, you had the casinos, you had the hotels, you know, and you keep in mind what, we had a population of maybe 200,000 people and 75,000 people that lived in that area. So although, you know, I was too young to realize that people like Sammy Davis Jr. and the rest, you know, all of the entertainers, they could only perform on the Strip and they couldn't live on the Strip. So they lived over in that side of town. And there's a couple of places that they lived and you know, like you had like your bowling alley, you had your restaurants and so forth and so on. And so you would, as a young man, as a young boy at that time, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, you've seen these people on a regular basis.
I know that in South Florida when they would perform in Miami Beach, Sammy Davis Jr. was not allowed to stay in Miami Beach, so he had to stay what they called overtown. So you went over the bridge into the mainland, and it was an African-American community. But a lot of the great entertainers would come with him and perform after their shows in those communities, and I'm wondering if they were doing the same thing here in...
Yeah, they did.
Did they really?
The Town Tavern, the Louisiana Club, that's where all of your entertainers were all the time. So, you know, I mean, of course, I'm a young man, a kid, and, you know, it was like from, let's say, the main strip, let's say, that Jackson Avenue, which was on Jackson, where I lived on Morgan, which was about 4 blocks away from there. So you walking up and down, and then you got to think that the whole valley at that time, you could just about walk from downtown to, once you get past Cary, it was all desert, and Cary from, let's say, Jackson is only about 4 blocks.
Okay.
So, you know, it's like there was very little. The town was just beginning to...
Which is now huge. I mean, when I go out to the north and go visit the VA hospital, and people ask me, how far away is it? I said, there's a sign that says end of world 2 miles. It's 1 mile past the sign, okay? That's how far away it is. But I'll have you know that the Roseman and the College of Medicine were involved with Councilman Cedric Creer and the city to build a wellness center on Jackson.
Yeah,
And so that's us that's going to be there. And then we have our Genesis team that goes right to the family's households to take care of them.
So, and those things are going to be really unique to some of the things that, you know, I'm doing, because, you know, now
Well, what you're doing is essential because what doctors do is take care of consequences. You got sick. Why did you get sick? Well, you might have lost your job or something of that nature. You can't afford your medicines and things of that nature. But the essence of what you're doing with economic development to train a future workforce, to develop industries that can absorb them, and to give them a living wage that can take care of their families in perpetuity, and you know, it is one of the most important aspects of society, period. Because if you got all the support you needed to get this done, we wouldn't need as many doctors as we need.
Well, yeah, of course, that's true. And what Roseman and Genesis is proposing in that area will just actually just kind of bring the area back to a place where you would mind, you know, living, working, enjoying the fruits of that community.
And you know, last month was Black History Month, and we went over to the museum to see the display they had on Paul Revere Williams was his name, the architect.
You went to Legacy Park, or you went to?
No, the one that's over there by the preserves.
Oh yeah, right.
And he had designed. Nobody had designed a home in the historic West Side. He designed like 150 of them.
Right. Yeah.
And he also did. If you go to the Neon Museum, the lobby is the old Concha Hotel, which he did. And he also did the Catholic church that's on the Strip. That I think it was Frank Rosenthal that had it built.
Yeah.
For his employees. And it's amazing the architecture in there, because if you look at the stained glass, it's all workers in casinos.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing history. It's individuals such as you. And by the way, Paul Revere Williams was the very first African American architect in all of the West. And we're talking, this is the 1930s, and there's a quote from him saying, because he built homes for movie stars and producers, that he will never be allowed to live in the neighborhoods where he designs the homes. And that's a very sad comment in our society. But having said that, your parents must have been incredible to bring you up so happily with all the things that they probably had to deal with, which, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, and my parents was just, I had two household parents. My father, he was a construction worker. He was a heavy equipment operator. So as a construction worker, you know, made decent money. And my mom, she was a maid at the Sands for a very long time until, you know, I think she, after, I think she had 9 kids, and I'm the 4th one down. And I think after me, she kind of retired and just, you know, stayed home.
Yeah, well, 4 kids, I think that's what you know, that's not quite retiring.
Yeah, but keep in mind, she had 5 more after that.
She had 5 more.
But yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Las Vegas was such a small town at the time. That area was such a small area that you know, you had no problem kind of, you know, because you got the schools, you got the elementary schools, you got the junior high schools, you had what was called Jefferson Recreation Center, and Marcus Haynes, who was a member of the Globetrotters, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Ran what was called the Jefferson Recreation Center, which had big Jefferson swimming pool. You know, you had the bumper pool. So you know, I mean, in other words, we had, as young people, you had it all right there. And you know, and then like I say, you know, how I got involved into the economic development and the development aspect. When I graduated from college, and I thought about, you know, last night, one of the key aspects of what happens to one and how their life changed as they begin to grow. And let's say that they got one thing in mind, but they end up life becoming something completely different. Like, for example, with me, my old man was a heavy equipment operator. Vegas, like it is now, is very hot in the summertime, and it gets cold in the wintertime. And he worked outside. My older brother, he worked in the hotel in like the kitchen area, you know. And we used to do like little extra help in the kitchen. They used to bring in us teenagers, and we would like, after they had conventions and stuff of that nature, we would clean the convention floors, take all the dishes and take them in the back, and you run them through these conveyor belts. And, you know, and one of the things you notice, like, these dishes don't break. I mean, you know, you put them in there, and, you know, compared to your dishes at home. But so as I was growing up, I had no idea what I was going to do because my dad was a construction worker, my mom was a maid. We wasn't ain't no putting the college fund together, and they both came from Tallulah, and they like. And back then, they was one generation from being slavery, and so therefore, it's like they just wanted to earn a living.
And they didn't have the intense racism that you get in the South.
Exactly. So there was a couple things. One, I don't want to work outside, and I don't want to work in the kitchen.
And
I don't know what I want to do, but those are out.
Okay.
Those two things are out.
So as we went through the process of elimination.
Exactly. But so actually, when I graduated from high school, they was looking for a person that they called a trainee to work at Nevada test site. Okay. And so I go to the unemployment office. I'm actually 16. I graduated when I was 16. I turned 17 in July. So, school's out in June. And I was a straight A student.
Yeah, you were the kind of guy that really made the rest of us mad. We're younger and smarter, and always happy.
So when I go for this interview for this job, I remember the lady asking me, said, "So why do you think you should get the job?" And I went in my back pocket, pulled out my report card, and I said, "This is the reason why I should get the job, because I'm smart." And I got hired.
There you go.
Now
you eventually did go to college in Seattle.
Yeah, but so this is leading into that.
Okay.
So this is after high school. That summer, I got hired to work at Nevada test site. Now, and what I basically was doing was when you go into the gates of the test site, you have like...
And which, by the way, this is where they were testing atomic weapons,
This
correct?
is where they was testing the atomic bombs. So I got a chance to see they had these big, deep holes that they would dig where they set the bomb off. And they got these big, humongous water tanks that after the bomb is set off, they dump these water tanks in, which cool the bomb off. When you see that mushroom going up.
Yeah, that's what it's from?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay. And which, by the way, Las Vegas embraced the test site. If you look at the advertisement in the 50s and 60s, it's all about that cloud.
That cloud, that mushroom, as they call it.
With the dancers in front of it. And,
Yeah. So anyway, now in working up there, right out of high school, and basically, you when I went to work, you got you got a red badge, a green badge, and a blue badge. A red badge, you can only go certain places on the test site. Green badge, you got better access, and the blue badge, you kind of can go all over. Okay, so I had a red badge, but my job was basically you had to be able to drive, so I did have a driver's license. And you start at the office, which is up in the front when you check in, but there was like maybe 50, 100 miles out in the site where they had the work actually going on that was all geared towards the testing of the bomb, the construction workers that was building, digging the holes, making the trenches, doing all of the things. And my job basically was just to go around and add up the time sheets, and then on Thursdays go to each one of the sites, get the time sheets, take them up to the main office, which is up in front. They process the paycheck. The next morning when I come, I distribute them, go out to the various sites. It's like, this is what I wouldn't mind doing,
right. And then you're sitting there going, I can't wait till they get air conditioning in the car.
So I had to add up the, like the time, the times and so forth and so on, the day's work. It's like, so this was a form of accounting. That then led me to where I wanted to become an accountant.
And how did you choose Seattle?
Well, so now that was only a summer job. Now now that that job was over with, spent like 3 months up there doing that. I go to the unemployment office, and they was looking for workers to go to work for Boeing's aircraft, you know. And so I fill out an application, and it's like, okay, you're hired. We're gonna, and we could pay subsistence pay to go there. We have your place to stay when you get there. We have all of the tools, equipment that you're gonna need, and you got a job. So I convinced 4 guys, all of us that graduated from Vegas, to let's go to Seattle. And so we end up in Seattle, and I went to work for Boeing's aircraft. But when I got to Boeing's, and then the thing that they gave was this toolbox with with these rivets, with these rivet guns, with muffins, and so forth and so on. And I'm there for about a week or two. I just got the job. Just don't know anybody in Seattle. But it's like I go to the supervisor one day and said, because that that bang, bang, bang. And it's like, I said, sir, you guys have tricked me up here. I'm from Las Vegas, So what do you mean? I said, well, I put on my application that I wanted to, to work like in accounting or something. I can't do this. This is killing my ears. I can't sleep at night. So, it's like, tricked me up here, and it's something that I can't do. So by the next week, they transferred me to Renton, to another part of Seattle, and now I was an expediter. So now all I had just you got the golf cart like truck, and you go around and you go to these various parts on the plane, and you take parts. They need a part this,
Right.
part that, part number, and you go to a VN and you get that and you take it back to the site. It's like, okay, I can do this. This is good. And that's that's how I then kind of furthered on my little education. But how I got to really get to college and get the degree and get all of that was one of the guys joined the Panther Party, the Black Panther Party, Buddy Yates. Him and I was really, really good friends. Him and I was going with the 2 sisters and so forth. So he now became a Black Panther Party. And they was like advocating jobs for people and so forth and so on. So there was this job that came through. They was interested in hiring someone as an accounting trainee at Rainier Brewery, which was a brewing company. And I went there, filled out the application. Not only did I get the job, but they also sent me to school. I worked directly with the chief accountant, and I was in charge of like the warehouse inventory at the time. And when I got there, let's say that the overs and shortages was thousands of dollars over and short, to where either the wrong product went to Boise or to South Seattle or the different, because it was a brewery. Okay, so you got quarts, 12 ounces, 16 ounce, bottles, right, cans, all, so the beer would be there, but it then went to different places, and there was a guy that was part of somebody's parent that he just didn't really have it, and so the inventory would be over thousands of cans of this and under thousands of bottles of this and so forth and so on. And anyway,
You came in to save the day.
before it was over with, if a bottle was broken, during the course of a 24-hour period, I know that that bottle was broken. That's how I took it and put everything. And so, it's like once I got in the office, now I'm working directly with the chief accountant, with not the chief accountant, but with the the manager of accounting manager. I learned now I'm going to school, and then I'm working, going to school. I get out of school like at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, come to work till 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And the guy that was accounting manager just took me under his wings and taught me all about accounting, all about everything. So,
That's like the old saying of Mark Twain: "Never let your schooling interfere with your education."
yeah.
Yeah, you have such an amazing life, and more importantly than that, you radiate a spirit that's unbelievable. You do know I'm going to invite you to come down and speak with the students, the medical students, once we get them. Well, it's important. It's important how you see what makes you so resilient, what makes you so happy, what makes you be the one that says, I'm going to leave this really good paying job and go hang out at the supermarket,
Well,
the shopping center that I.
let's take this a little farther. So now, let's say, okay, so Boeing, things happen. This had to been in about 70 so to where now they're making this big major layoff. All right. Now, I do accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll. I do everything in the office. I mean, you're young,
Right.
you're resilient, okay? And then I done graduated, and so the chief accountant, the accounting manager was let go when things had slowed down at Boeing. People ain't drinking as much beer now. Beer sales are down. We got to cut back staff, all right? So now they cut the accounting manager staff. But I'm doing all the work, I mean, I'm
Right,
doing
so
all the
if-
work and get all the paperwork and issue the report to the chief accountant who takes it now and give it to the finance
Right.
manager, okay?
His report that you did.
Yeah, right. So let's say that they don't let the accounting manager go, but ain't nothing to stop because I'm doing it all anyway.
Right.
Okay.
So,
But now, I got this big old natural. I got a flair about me, let's say. And
well, I can't see any more self-confidence than I see now. Okay.
so, but now they come to where, okay, well, John, we're going to bring in another accounting manager because I just knew I was getting a job.
Right.
Okay? We're bringing in another accounting manager, and we want you to train him.
Great.
And I
You get to
think
train your boss. That doesn't work out well.
So now they bring in this white guy. They want me to train him to do my job. And it's like, no, I can't do this.
Right.
But now, mind you, they done sent me to school and paid for everything. I got the car, the dog, the house, the whole bit. So can I afford to quit? Not really. And they knew that I was like really kind of I'm kind of an easy kind of guy there's no way that you are going to quit. How what about your cost of living? What
Right.
about your living and so forth? So, and we want you to train this guy and, it's like, no, I'm not doing it. If you bring a guy in, I'm not going to train anybody to do my job. So, a week or two go by, and now by this time, I sent my wife back. Mind you, I'm only like about 20 or so at the time, 19 or 20. I got car, house, all this at an early age. Okay, so I sent my wife back to Las Vegas, back with her mom. Okay, because if they do this, I am going to quit. Okay. they don't believe that I'm going to quit because
You're too comfortable.
yes, exactly. And they did it, and because I told them I wasn't training this guy to be my boss, and I quit.
You know, there's an old saying by George Bernard Shaw, and I know I'm saying it not exactly the way he wrote it, but it's the world lives with reasonable men, and reasonable men always follow the rules. An unreasonable man breaks the rules. As such, the only progress we can have in society is with the unreasonable man. And they never expected you to be unreasonable because they gave you all these comfort. They never expected you to leave the baccarat table.
Well, first of all, it was like they don't send me to school. They don't pay for everything. You know, I mean, it's like you got to be happy here. You know, I mean, and I was.
And you said thank you.
First of all, you know, one of the things that we could drink beer on the job. They wanted you to drink this. Remember, we work for a brewery. We got beer machines right next to you where you're working at. When you go on your break, they want you to go down to the where they have the guests to come and drink beer on your breaks.
I'm a liver specialist. Don't tell me that, okay? John, it has been such a pleasure and an honor to have you on this show. And I got to tell you, your conversation is so enticing that we've gone way over our time limit. It was about 20 minutes ago. She's going, you got 3 minutes.
I haven't got to the meat of it.
That's right.
You got to
tell the story.
That now that they didn't hire, now that they brought this guy in, okay? So when you think about this has happened to blacks all over America, the same thing to where they doing the job, they know how to do the job, but then they brought a white guy in to train for them to take your place.
And you came back to Las Vegas, became a baccarat dealer in spite of having a degree in accounting.
Exactly.
So you were the best educated baccarat dealer in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things that kind of...
Here, let's do it this way. I'm going to invite you back. Your storytelling motivates people. And I can see why you're doing economic development in the historic West Side, because you're just not anybody that's going to, well, I'm going to retire. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I'm really glad that's never going to happen because society makes it better. And I got to tell you something else. It's the pleasure of meeting an individual like you that makes, at least my wife and myself, our journey across this country to come to Las Vegas.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and we get to meet individuals like you. And it's individuals like John that make our society and our community here in Las Vegas so special and so different than the rest of the United States. I'd like to thank you for everything you've done. I want to thank you for being on this show, but I also want to remind you you're coming back. And you're going to speak to the med students, okay?
Okay, I'll do that. I enjoy now talking with people, sharing the different stories. They told me I need to be writing a book, but
you should be writing a book.
That's because there's a lot that we haven't really covered.
No, we'll cover it because people need to see your enthusiasm. What you've gone through. You've gone through some of the most horrific historic times in this country, and you've come out with a smile. Not only do you have a smile, you're doing this for future generations. What you do is so much more than we do in medicine. You give people a future.
Because one of the things that to look out for is that Jackson Avenue piece. Remember now I told you that was the Cove, the Carver House, the Cotton Bowl, the Louisiana Club, the Town Tavern, the Brown Derby. All of these places was right there in that community. And now what I've got my mind set on, of course, who done built 140,000 square foot of shopping center called, in his name, Edmond Town Center. Yeah. Who took a shopping center that was burnt up and destroyed and made it now a nice flourishing property on the side. But now I'm going after Jackson Street.
Well, we're going to be there together with the Wellness Center.
Roseman is talking about, creating the
Wellness Center there.
Yes.
Have our students there. And you guys, take his lead. Our society, our community is ours to make better.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, like, and comment on your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to support the groundbreaking work that Dr. Greer is doing at the Roseman University College of Medicine, please donate at the link below. Thanks for tuning in to No Laughing Matter with Cuba Pete, as together we work to unite the heart and science of healthcare to serve all in our communities. See you next time.